Ever bump into those little quirks in languages that make you scratch your head? Like, why does Spanish have two ways of saying A or N when English gets by with just one?
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Totally. So today we're taking a deep dive into those tricky little words. Unos, unas. Those Spanish indefinite articles. We've got this text that really breaks them down.
Oh, cool.
And I gotta say, there are some pretty surprising things in here. Like, we all start with the basics, right? Un for masculine, una for feminine.
Seems straightforward enough.
You'd think so, but then you hit a word like águila, eagle. Grammatically feminine, but it's un águila. I totally turned around when I was learning.
Ah, yeah, that one gets a lot of people. It's not just about the grammatical gender in this case, but how the word actually sounds.
Oh, interesting.
Águila, even though it's feminine on paper, it starts with a sound we usually think of as masculine, so it gets un.
So it's like the spoken language kind of wins out over the written rule.
Exactly. Language is ultimately about communication, right? And we speak it more than we write it.
That makes a lot of sense. Are there other examples like that where the sound trumps the I guess the written rule?
Oh, tons. Think of agua, water. Again, grammatically feminine, but we say un agua, all because of that initial sound.
Wow, that's wild. Okay, so we've got masculine, feminine, and then these sound-based exceptions. But how do we actually use these articles? I mean, it's one thing to know the rules, but another to actually use them.
Right, right. Well, just like in English, we use them when we're signaling that something is part of a bigger group.
Okay.
Like, es un reloj, it's a watch. We're putting that one watch into the whole category of watches.
Right, like identifying it as one of many.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But then this text also talks about using them for quantity, like a single quantity.
Yes.
And that's where things get really interesting with the plurals, unos and unas, at least for me.
Absolutely. And this is where Spanish gets super precise. In a way, English kind of glosses over.
Yep.
Like, think about saying a few cookies in Spanish should be unas galletas.
Unas galletas.
Even in the plural, those articles are carrying the meaning of a small, undefined number.
So it's not just about it being more than one cookie, but also this sense of how many.
Exactly. It's like saying a handful of cookies versus just some cookies. Subtle, but it adds a layer of meaning we might not even realize we're missing in English.
Wow, that's a really cool way to think about it.
Yeah.
So unas and unas, they're like the Spanish equivalent of a few, but with like extra layers.
Precisely. And again, it's not just grammar, right? It's a window into how a language reflects a slightly different way of thinking about things. Even simple things like quantities.
That's fascinating. We've gone from seeming like this basic word to like a whole world of linguistic differences.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And cultural insights too.
Exactly. That's the beauty of language learning. It's not just memorizing words. It's like getting new glasses to see the world through.
Absolutely. So next time you're speaking Spanish, or even just listening, pay attention to those uns and unas.
You might be surprised.
Yeah, they could totally change how you think about language forever, maybe even about English.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It really does.